There were banking delays, there were bureaucratic delays, there were legal delays, there was paperwork that had to be sent by email, and some paperwork that needed to be signed in blue ink and sent in the post. But then one day, all the delays are done, and the lawyers get paid, the charges get laid, and the world keeps on turning. To my knowledge, Durianrider will now be facing 3 criminal charges in a court of law. Just one of those charges, if he's found guilty of it, to my knowledge, may be imperfect, a normal prison sentence would be 1 full year. And that would be 1 full year in a jail in Thailand. And from the accounts that I've read, prisons in Thailand are pretty tough. I've read accounts of people who slept on the floor, and who slept on the floor with the rats. People who woke up in the morning and saw, baby rats with their mother living inside their shoes. People just going crazy with the daily horror of having to deal with the mosquitoes and the extreme heat and not having access to a fan or air conditioning or any of the comforts you may be used to if you're vacationing in Thailand at the Bangkok Hilton of another kind. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. It's serious stuff. It's no laughing matter. And, I sympathize with those who are trying to make this into a drama, into a comedy, into entertainment on the internet. But the bottom line is, people donated money to this because they thought it was the right thing to do. They cared about the future of veganism. They felt that veganism today needed to have leaders who were more respectable than what we've got. And I think in terms of the followers in veganism also, I think many of the donors were hoping that this would wake up some of the people who were still slumbering, some of the people who were still so deluded. Because I still see those videos, I still hear those voices. I still hear the voices of people who went to Chiang Mai, who were maybe in Chiang Mai at the same time I was, or in the weeks after I left. People who've managed to keep their heads in the sand and avoid dealing with the really difficult ethical and political questions that were raised by the controversy that I was an unwilling participant in Chiang Mai. 1 year in jail is no joke. I think it's no joke if you're in the United States or Europe, but it's definitely no joke if you're in Thailand. We've all seen Durianrider boast many times, and he boasted about this in the middle of making his threats against me. We've seen him boast many times that he was not afraid to go to jail. Well, he'll get to prove that soon enough. To my mind, he'll have 2 options. He can either stay in Thailand and face the charges. And again, as I've said in this channel, I really do believe that everyone is innocent until they're proven guilty. It's completely possible that he'll manage to maintain his innocence, that he'll spend the time going through the court system, and in the end, he'll be found not guilty. It's entirely possible. Stranger things have happened in a court of law. Or it seems to me he'll choose to run. He'll become a fugitive within Thailand. He'll flee that country, and he'll never be able to return to that country because of the criminal charges pending against him and the circumstances of his flight. And I think in many ways that might be more devastating for him because Thailand has become a huge part of his identity. Chiang Mai specifically obviously means a lot to him. It's where he feels important. It's the center of his world as he's constructed it. There are a bunch of other things I could talk about in this video. I don't know what to tell you. I don't take any joy in this. I guess I do take some small measure of joy in just proving wrong all of the stupid, self-righteous, mean-spirited people who offered me advice on my legal case, advice that was based on their uncritically watching videos Durianrider himself made in response to this. And let's be clear, Durianrider didn't just defame me and slander me. He never stopped defaming me and slandering me. He's continued to make new videos about me, defaming me, slandering me, misrepresenting what happened just a few months ago in Chiang Mai, misrepresenting what he did, when he did it, why he did it, and, defaming, insulting, and misrepresenting me. How anyone could be so foolish as to take his videos as a factual description of what the situation is now, to then offer me legal advice. People like Jeff Nelson, VegSource, did exactly this. Jeff Nelson wrote to me these long emails telling me about his experience in the court system and why he thought I shouldn't start a lawsuit. He's talking about a civil lawsuit in Australia dealing with Durianrider, giving me all kinds of advice I never asked for. And in response to that advice, I pointed to him and said, look, it sounds to me like you've never watched my videos on this. You've only watched what Durianrider had to say about it, and you're not paying close attention to what I actually said about what the situation is. It would not have taken a genius to figure out from the information that I presented that the charges were criminal charges. This is also why the title of the video and the fundraiser talked about sending Durianrider to jail. I'm not Kayla Itzines. This is not about me selling diet books. This is not about my reputation as a yoga instructor or fitness guru. This is not comparable to those earlier cases at all. Okay? This is a situation where a crime was committed in Thailand, and it does not take a genius to figure out that it is ultimately the Thai authorities who will be responsible for putting someone in jail or deciding not to do so. Now, the other incredibly stupid comment that several people, including some highly educated people, someone I won't name with a very expensive university diploma from, was it Cornell University in the U.S., a number of people who consider themselves wise wrote to me saying, oh, well, if they're criminal charges, then it should be free. It shouldn't cost any money. I'm sorry, I don't know what low-grade, detective movies you've been watching where you think that pressing criminal charges doesn't cost any money. If you want to present evidence in a court of law in Thailand, at a minimum, you have to take that evidence and translate it from English into Thai. And that translation has to be properly notarized. It has to be legally deemed valid. It has to be verified as valid. I've now been through that in more than one country. Even when I was in France, I had to have my own birth certificate translated into French and then notarized to prove that, my translation of my birth certificate wasn't false or inaccurate or misleading. So there are very particular legal processes to prepare evidence to present to the police, to present to a court in any country when you've got a language barrier involved. Beyond that, you guys all know I don't live in Thailand. I'm not a Thai citizen. So if I want to have a lawyer in Thailand take that evidence, translate it, notarize it, present it to the police, present it to several different government authorities, do you think that happens for free? The combination of stupidity and self-righteousness from all of these very public voices that chose to denounce me on this issue, without even listening to what I said in my own videos about what the situation is, I don't know. I guess the memory of that will stay with me forever. I don't know. What does this mean? What does this mean for the present and future of veganism? It's hard for me to say. It's amazing. It's a miracle that we raised over $6,500 in, less than 48 hours for this cause. Very, very few people lost interest in or lost their support, changed their mind about supporting it in the months that followed. There was a window of time of a couple of months when you could have gotten a refund, and a couple people did, maybe 3 people, I forget the exact number. But very, very few people asked for their money back, and those who did ask received it. Now it's too late. Money's already been spent. It's already gone on to the lawyers and so on. Transaction is in the past tense. This very clearly showed that there is a significant minority within veganism who looked at this disaster, who looked at the ethical issues involved and said, we can do better than this. We should be better than this. How are we going to get there? And I hope this is a positive part. I hope this is a positive step towards all of us getting there. But of course I have misgivings about it. Of course I have doubts. Of course, I mean, I hope that people were not just donating money out of a mean-spirited thirst for drama. I hope they weren't donating money just out of wanting to see somebody suffer. Probably some of them were. Probably there's a little bit of mean-spirited. There are probably some negative impulses there too behind the donations and people supporting this. When I talked to one of the mainstream journalists about this, I've been interviewed. One of the things I said was, look, if this was happening within a communist movement or within a right-wing movement or something, you wouldn't even be having this conversation with me. You just say, well, there are a bunch of crazy left-wingers or there are a bunch of crazy right-wingers. Sometimes they threaten to beat each other up. Who knows? Sometimes there are these kinds of struggles for ego or leadership, what have you. It's the fact that this went on within a movement that's devoted to not even killing mosquitoes, in some people's interpretation. A movement that, much more prominently, is devoted to saving the lives of snails and scorpions, of, refusing to hurt a fly. It's the mixed message of nonviolence, compassion, saving the planet, caring, love, etc. It's the contrast between that and the hyper-fragile, hyper-egoistic beauty, weight loss, the banality and brutality of the message that was mixed up with threats of violence on the other side. That's what makes it tragicomic. There's so much potential here. I mean, obviously I see this whole thing as, these people flying to Thailand, and they might as well be in Hawaii. They just have no meaningful contact with what Thailand is or what it's about. There's lost potential in so many ways. But obviously you have a mix of artistic people, athletic people, intellectual people, political people. You have this common ground of this, profound and frightening challenge for the 21st century of ecology, animal rights, leading a meaningful life, in a world where literally the North Pole is melting. The clock is ticking for all of us. Sort of apocalyptic, fever, gradually creeping around the world, an awareness of the seriousness of the ecological issues facing us. And in another sense, there's a very different way in which people wake up to the seriousness of the ethical issues facing us. And the contrast to that is get thin, get beautiful, get famous on the internet, make money from your Instagram, from putting on a bikini, hyper shallow, hyper fragile. And then this whole business of defamation and violence. It's a strange cocktail. And like I say, if this had happened in a left-wing movement or a right-wing movement, I think people would just shrug their shoulders and say, what did you expect? But this is an opportunity for all of us in veganism, leaders and followers, cooking show enthusiasts and street activists, everyone, every street. This is an opportunity for all of us to look in the mirror and say, what did we expect? Can't we expect better? Shouldn't we demand better? And how are we going to get from here to there? And yeah, there's no joy in my heart to say it, but this never was a scam. This was an entirely sincere legal process. And if anything, it's somewhat scary for me to think that one day I might be visiting Durianrider when he's in jail.